Custer turned north with 210 men. When he reached the crest of the hills, the Indian village was fully revealed. What he saw shocked him.
Custer looked over there for the first time, and gee whiz, his head, face turned white, whiter than ever. First time he's seen it. It's a huge camp.
It was one of the largest gatherings of Northern Plains Indians, with over 1,500 warriors.
And even after we told him that there's an overwhelming force down there, you better wait. But he was determined to go ahead and attack.
Reno was retreating before an Indian counterattack. Custer prepared for action. He sent a message recalling Benteen and his supplies. Then, through his interpreter, Mitch Boye, he told his Indian scouts to leave.
So the interpreter, Mitch Boye, said, "Boys, you're lucky. Get away from here as fast as possible. I'm stuck. I sign up, so I'm going to die with him."
Joe Medicine Crow's grandfather, White Man Ransom, escaped the battle. Interpreter Mitch Boye fatefully rode with Custer into a valley called Medicine Tail Coulee. And it was from here that Custer and the 7th Cavalry rode into history and myth. But he left behind him a trail of clues, and more than 100 years later, archaeologists started picking up that trail.
I do recall the very first day, the first hour, in fact, the metal detector sang. It was one find after another.
The finds were spent cartridges, bullets, and pieces of equipment. The remains of a battle buried for over a century.
Yep, another Henry cartridge case. Double firing pin imprint. On the first day alone, we recovered cartridges, bullets, bits and other pieces of personal gear. And it was stunning. It was literally stunning.
Oh, John, I got a pretty good beep right here.
The searchers checked every location, unearthed objects, and determined if they were from the battle.
The association of a cartridge with a button will tell us where a soldier might have fired his weapon, might have been killed, or at least his uniform torn or lost. One of the most poignant artifacts I have ever seen is this wedding band still encircling the finger bone, reminding us of the emotional impact that must have occurred to the families of those who were related or knew these individuals.
Over 5,000 artifacts have been found. Every one was numbered and logged to create a detailed computer map of the battlefield. And this was only a sample of what lies buried. Even today, the battlefield reveals an extraordinary find.
There she is. Yeah. In nice shape. Great condition. It's a .45 caliber carbine round, unfired, in very nice condition.
It's an original 7th Cavalry bullet, still unfired, over 125 years old, and found near to Last Stand Hill.
This was the one we picked up on Last Stand Hill just the other day.
Oh yeah, unfired .45 caliber Springfield. Yeah. I guess that's the normal situation in combat under stress, confusion. People drop rounds, lose them.
The 7th Cavalry were issued only with .45 caliber Springfield carbines and pistols, so it's easy to identify U.S. Army bullets and cartridges. But what about the hundreds of other cartridges and bullets? These can only have come from Indian guns. What can these bullets and cartridges actually tell us about the battle? When a trooper's carbine is fired, the spent cartridge is ejected and falls onto the ground. So the place where a trooper's cartridge case is found reveals a trooper's position. Lead bullets have a similar story to tell. Indian bullets are found impacted at trooper positions, and trooper bullets at Indian positions.
Yeah, that's a .45 carbine bullet.
It was the huge amount of Indian bullets and cartridge cases that surprised the archaeologists.
The quantity of cartridge cases that was found in and around these Indian positions was significant, which suggested that there were a lot of weapons there.
How is it possible to know the quantity and types of guns that were used against the troopers? cartridges and bullets can offer clues to the guns that fired them.
But those are the marks we're looking for.
That's what we're looking for, the firing pin impression marks and the possibility of extractor marks. When a bullet is fired, it travels down the barrel. It is marked by the rifling characteristics that are placed in that barrel. They're analogous to a fingerprint if you have enough individual characteristics to individualize a particular firearm.
Analyzing the bullets reveals that the amount and types of Indian guns were far greater than had been previously thought.
What we found were in excess of 47 types of firearms used by the warriors against the soldiers at Little Bighorn.
That means that more than 800 warriors were armed with anything from muzzle-loading antiques to the latest repeating rifles. Custer was outgunned 4-1.
And we were truly surprised at the numbers of weapons that were present here.
The myth of Indian warriors with only bows and arrows was overturned. But how did they acquire so many firearms?
The Indians acquired weapons just like anybody else did. They could go to the trading post and purchase them or trade for them. They were used for hunting. In this case, they were used for hunting white men.
Any firearm was a good firearm as far as a Plains Indian was concerned.
Yes.
And it could range from, 75 caliber horse pistols, flintlocks, to percussion rifles, to cartridge guns.
Now, that's 66 Winchester?
Right. Because it's very lightweight, and it was very appropriate for Indian use because it was like a bow and arrow that it fired very rapidly, but it was still a very short-range weapon. And as a warrior, you wanted to get in very close and maybe use the smooth bore with a sawed-off bore. So you could get in, you wanted to see the look on that man's face when he knew that you knew that he knew he was going down, and that's what the warfare was all about. So revolvers also were incredibly popular because they were the same thing as all the other type of weapons. They were a handheld, very lightweight, rapid-fire, very close-range weapon.
Bullets reveal much, but it would be the cartridge cases that held the clues to unravel the mystery of the defeat of the 7th Cavalry.
When that cartridge is fired, it is struck from the rear by a firing pin. That firing pin impression has great value in identification.
Every gun's firing pin is unique, and it leaves the same impression on every cartridge case it fires. If it's possible to match cartridge cases to the same gun, it may be possible to track the movement of guns around the battlefield.
And there we have 2 firing pin imprints. They're different sizes and different imperfections, and that represents 2 different weapons.
If cartridges have matching firing pin impressions, they must come from the same gun. Douglas Scott cross-checked over 1,500 cartridges looking for matching firing pin impressions. It would take hundreds of hours of painstaking work. Then, one by one, he found them.
Let's bring our cartridge case up we've been looking at, and the new one on the left. We have some unique characteristics up here and in the middle here that say these 2 were fired in the same gun. This one was fired at Calhoun Hill. This one closer to Last Stand Hill, about a quarter of a mile apart, and therefore we know that weapon literally moved. It might represent a fleeing soldier, or it might actually represent the captured weapon that the Indians picked up and then turned against Custer.
Many groupings of Indian cartridges lay behind gullies and ridges. What did this reveal about Indian tactics?
What it told us is how the Native Americans were able to effectively use the terrain to cover themselves from incoming fire. But they were still able to pop up and get the soldiers.
By connecting the cartridge cases fired by the same gun, it was now possible to see troopers and warriors moving across the battlefield.
We could see that soldiers had moved very little, but the Indians were moving all about that field.
An army weapon reputed to have been at the battle was test-fired to identify its firing pin impression.